Alrighty, this lesson is on comparing and ordering integers. We have already talked about what an integer was when we talked about integers operations, when we added, subtract, and then in our last lesson on classifying rational numbers, we also talked about what an integer is. And just a little refresher, an integer is a negative whole number, right? So if it can't be a whole, if it's the positive and it can't be a whole number, then it can't be an integer. Just because it has a negative sign does not mean that it's an integer. Okay, so when we order integers, myself, I love visuals. I love seeing it on a number line because then I can visualize which one is what. So on my number line, we have talked about all these numbers to the right of 0, right? You have talked about those until you were blue in the face. And you knew that when you are going away from 0 on the right side of 0, that the bigger the number gets, correct? Yes, ma'am? Okay. Well, if it's going bigger as you get away from 0 here, then the opposite, because it's the opposite side of 0, is true. The further away from 0 you get on the left side, what happens? The what? The smaller, right? So we start at 0. If we're going to the right, the further away from 0 we get, the bigger we get. When we're on the left of 0, then the further away from 0, the smaller we get. I like to remember it, and I always make me a number line whether I put the numbers on there or not. But the furthest left on the number line is my least. Furthest left is my least. As I continue to make my way to the right, I will get bigger. That's how I remember it. Furthest to the left. The furthest to the left, the least I am. So I'm going to write that over here. Further left on number line. Least number. A lot of times students kind of get that misconception of, oh, well, 4 is bigger than 2. But when we're on the other side or on the left side of 0, we have to think opposite, right? Is it better to owe somebody $4 or owe somebody only $2? Very much better to owe somebody $2 than $4, correct? Because on the left side, the further I get to 0, the better. Now, when we're on the positive side, remember this was our positive side, and these were our negatives. When we're on the positive or over 0, the further we get away from 0, the more money we get, the better, right? All right. So we are going to place these integers in order from least to greatest. Now, I know one of your strategies that they have taught you in the past is to write out least to greatest. Because sometimes it may ask you greatest to least, and sometimes it may ask me least to greatest. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these 5 integers on the number line. So let's go ahead right now. I want everybody to be placing their numbers on the number line. I'm going to be doing it as well. So here's negative 5, positive 2, 0, negative 3, positive 4. So I now have them placed on my number line. Now remember, the further left, the smaller I am. The further right, the bigger I am. So I need to put them in order from least, or the furthest left, to right, or least to greatest. So I'm going to start here, -5, and then what? -3, then what? 0, then 2, and then 4. Perfect. Now it says place the integers in order from greatest to least. Greatest to least. You should have this written out next to it, the L to G and the G to L. All right, so this time I'm going from my least number, or I'm starting with my greatest number, which is going to be my further right, and I'm going to work to my least number. So it's going to be 4, 2, 0, -3, -5. So I have 4, 2, 0, -3, -5. That is in order from greatest to least. Now, vocabulary word time, because we like to do those vocabulary words. When I put them in order from least to greatest, we're in big kids school now, so there is a lovely word that we use, and it's called ascending. Ascending order. That means least to greatest. Then from greatest to least is called descending order. Have y'all heard those words before?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. I kind of sometimes get mixed up with which one's ascending and which one's descending. So this is how I remember it. Descending starts with what letter?
D.
D. Going down starts with what letter? D, right? A for above or air, right? Because I always think of planes when I hear ascending and descending. Descending, that's what the pilot says when he's coming to land, and he's like, prepare for descent, or we're descending down to 1,000 feet or whatever it is. So that's the difference. You're going to be seeing these words, especially as we move 4th through 6th grade. You're going to be seeing ascending and descending. They may not tell you, hey, put these in order from least to greatest. They may just say, put these in ascending order. You have to know the difference between ascending and descending. All right, so this is putting them in order. Now let's just compare those two. So me, myself, whenever I'm comparing numbers, I draw a number line. I'm going to show you. It's just a blank number line, and I label 0. That's all I do. Now, as I work through these, I can visualize where it would go on my number line. So if I'm comparing -3 and 3, where would -3 go? On the left, somewhere about right there, right? Give or take. And then +3 would go where?
On the right.
On the right somewhere. Knowing that the further left, the least I am, that means -3 is less than +3. This will really help when you get into some of those bigger numbers, kind of visualizing where I'm going to put them on my number line. All right, so I have 100 and I have -120. My brain wants to see 100 and 120, but my 6th grade mature brain is starting to see negatives and positives. Where would +100 go? Yes, ma'am? On the right, maybe way over here, correct? And at -120?
On the left.
Yes, sir? Somewhere over here on the left. Just seeing that visual automatically tells me that this number is going to be least or less than this number. So 100 is greater than negative 120. What about 0 and negative 2? Tell me.
0 is like in the
Not
middle.
like.
Is in
Oh,
the middle.
uh-huh.
And then negative 2 is on the left.
On the left, it's going to come right over here somewhere. So then what would be my comparing them? Yes, ma'am?
0 would be greater than negative 2.
Perfect. 0 is greater than negative 2. Perfect. And last but not least, yes, ma'am?
Negative 4, negative 10, negative 14, negative 10 would be more closer to 0. Negative 14 would be farther from 0.
Very good. So negative 10 would be closer to 0, and negative 14 is going to be further away from, still on the left side. So then which one is going to be greater?
Negative 10.
Yes, ma'am? Negative 10 will be greater than negative 14. Perfect. I'm gonna throw out another vocabulary. So you're gonna be able to leave here with knowing ascending and descending, and then these lovely little symbols that you may always have thought was just called alligators or something like that, or mouths or whatever. They actually have technical words, and because we're in big kids school now, we're actually going to use those words. Those are called inequalities. That is the inequality symbols. Inequality. We're going to talk about those a little bit later in our school year. All right. So what I want you to do, let's flip this over. And I want you to go ahead. I'm going to give you all some time. I'll put the timer on. And I want you to do these 5 problems. Notice what order am I putting them in?
Least to greatest.
So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put L to G, because I don't want to forget that. All right, so right now, go ahead and put them in order from least to greatest, and then we'll come back and go through these. Okay, so now that you've had some time to go ahead and do these, if you're watching the video, hopefully you paused it so that you could work these out. If not, pause it now so that you can work them out and then push play, because I'm about to go over it. All right, so I'm going to put them in order from least to greatest. And let's see here. I like to go little at a time. Actually, I like to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I draw out 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I do that so that I don't forget a number. So sometimes that can be a problem. All right, so when I look here, my smallest number is negative 79. Then I go to negative 53. Then I go to negative 40. Negative 31. Now I'm on the positive sides. So 16, 75, 78. So far, so good? All right. Same thing that we are going to do with numbers, the rest of them. So hopefully you've had a chance to get it done, because I'm just going to put the answers up so that for time purposes, because we have just a few more minutes left of class. Miss Thing, sit down. I was given that to other Miss thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure we have all these. -7, -5, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10. -39, -32, -5, 15, 18, 27, 28, 30, 49. Hopefully y'all are getting these correct, because y'all have an amazing teacher. And then, so there's those answers. I'm plotting them on the number line. I needed to make sure that I have this labeled, and then make sure that they are plotted in the correct spot. And for time purposes, I'm going to go ahead and put what the plots should have been. So check your plots, make sure they're in the right spot. Fold it over and glue it into your journal.